Hello, everyone. Welcome to the First Ones to Die podcast. My name is Jonathan. I am here with three today amazing people. First, we have, the main crew, Jerome and Alex. How are you guys doing? Jerome, what's up?
Uh, you know, Dying. No, I'm okay. I'm all right.
All
Because
right.
that joke is great to make right now.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Oh,
Sorry,
I
I
didn't.
was like, I had something stuck in my throat. I couldn't. You were just like, you pointed to me first. It was like, how's it going? Like, like it was
Oh,
bad.
okay. I thought you were referencing like the name of our podcast, and
Maybe you
Jerome's the
never know.
first one to die today.
he's the first one to die today. Alex, how are you?
I am good. I have my coffee in my little new mug or cup with our logo.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful mug logo.
Thank you.
If you are listening to the audio version, you should switch over to YouTube right now or continue listening to audio.
Yeah,
But if you
YouTube
want
at
to
the
see the
first ones
mug,
to die.
yes. And before we get to our special guest today, before this, we joined on and started recording, we had a small debate on who was bigger, Brandy or Keisha Cole. Jerome seems to be in the camp that Keisha Cole was bigger than Brandy. I don't know why, but
I'm just
let us know
saying.
your thoughts.
Recently,
Whoa.
Cole's had a verses. I haven't seen Brandy's verses yet.
No, I'm not. We're not talking about Keisha Cole now. We're talking about Keisha Cole when Brandy and they were equal.
She was playing nothing but old hits. She ain't playing nothing new. Keisha Cole. I mean, she does have a new album last year, but she ain't playing none of that. Keisha Cole. She ain't playing none of
I
that.
can't believe you're still trying to defend yourself. Though.
Yes, we're just gonna
You're still trying
navigate
to
away from his incorrect opinion.
Y'all ain't gonna disrespect
And-
Keisha Cole. She's been through a lot.
We're not disrespecting you. Disrespecting Brandy. Anyway,
we're gonna transition into our special guest. You have heard her before. It is Jazmine Shiloh. Welcome back, Jazmine.
Hi, thanks for having me again. Happy to be here.
Yes, awesome. And you are here on a great episode because today we're going to be talking about Judas and the Black Messiah, the movie that was recently released in theaters and on HBO Max. It's directed by Shaka King, not to be confused with Shaka Khan. It stars Daniel Kaluuya, Lakeith Stanfield.
Every time I hear his name, I do think about Shaka Khan.
It sounds like Shaka.
Okay, totally fair because I thought I was the only one. So,
No,
yeah.
it is what it is with that name. So, yeah.
Lakeith Stanfield, Dominique Fishback, and Jesse Plemons, among others. And it tells the story of Fred Hampton, chairman of the Illinois Black Panther Party, and his fateful betrayal by FBI informant William O'Neill, based on the true story, obviously. And before we get into the nitty-gritty of everything, it's a true story, so there really are no spoilers. But for the people who don't want to be spoiled about the movie itself, we're going to be going into our general thoughts first, and then later on in the show, we're going to be diving deeper. And we'll give you a warning before we do. So today, I think I'll go to Alex for her thoughts first.
I love the movie. I thought it was really good, really well made. This movie I actually connected with, unlike our last one. It was interesting to see because I've known a lot about the Black Panthers, but I knew more about them, the groups that are in like San Francisco and California and New York's. I knew very little about the ones that were actually stationed in Chicago, which is interesting because I have said many times that's where I'm from. Sadly, I know more about the crime than the activism in Chicago, which I find I should, learn more about, which makes me very proud. So it was a great movie to see, and knowing that was, happening in Chicago, that there was a group there that was trying to, make changes was just something I grew proud of when I was watching the movie. The more I watched it, and the betrayal part really hit me because I just was like, how dare you, sir? How dare you try to take down a leader who's trying to help you as well, and you just turn your back on him constantly. So
Yeah.
I think the movie hit me in a powerful way too.
Yeah. Our special guest, Jazmine. What did you think about the story or the movie?
I really liked it. I would like to watch it again. I don't usually watch movies like that over again. I think, I mean, they just like hit really, really hard, seeing that stuff. And I always think of Selma. Like, I think I've only seen Selma once. So those movies I think are so important, but it's hard to rewatch them. But it hit me in the feels for sure. It was good.
Yeah. How about you, Jerome?
Um, I liked it. I really liked it. I think this is an amazing film. Um, I think it's directed very well, acted very well. Um, I think though the other thing that really makes this movie like transcendent for me is that it's very rare that we get to see the like the next generation of the civil rights movement after um people like MLK and Malcolm X. In fact, we just had
Mm.
One Night in Miami, which I just watched as well, which is funny because I watched One Night in Miami like earlier this week. And then Friday, I was like, I'm gonna watch Judas and the Black Messiah. So it feels like a great double feature. So if you want to have a great double feature night that's like Black History Month in honor of Black History Month, One Night in Miami, Judas and the Black Messiah, if you can do it. But nonetheless, like it's very I can't think of too many movies that are about like that next era after those men were gone and like what the Black community was doing in the meantime. Uh, and so it was really cool and refreshing to see that part of the Black activism that happened during that time period and leading into the 70s and stuff like that. Also, this movie made me angry, made me so angry, not because it was bad, just because of William O'Neill's story. And I already knew how it ended without even really know, because I never knew William O'Neill. I had heard some stuff from Fred Hampton. I never knew who William O'Neill was until this movie. And so the ending of his story, like in real life, I was like, I know exactly what he's gonna do, and it pissed me off. But other than that, though, great film, fantastic movie. I know Daniel Kaluuya is gonna get nominated. I hope Dominique Fishback also is nominated. And big shout out to Algie Smith. I see you from Euphoria jumping into this movie. Good for you, brother. Hope to see you do more stuff.
I knew you were going to mention Euphoria. I feel
Yeah.
like Euphoria gets mentioned.
Both of you
in
keep
every
mentioning
single
Euphoria.
podcast.
Yeah,
That's the
every
thing that
podcast.
connects me and you together. All right, we always will root for our Euphoria people.
What about you, Jonathan? What do you think of initially of the movie?
I second everyone's sentiments. I didn't know anything really about the story going into it. I just knew that, it was based on one of the chapters of the Black Panther Party. And it took me a second to really understand what was happening in the movie. But that ending it just took me back, and I feel like it completed the movie for me, and I just had to look more into some of the intricacies of the true story, because I was just really fascinated. Even though at the end screen credits they tell you exactly what happened in the years after where the movie ends. I just wanted to know more about it, so I researched a little bit, and it's fascinating. And I want to watch some of the other film projects and interviews and everything that are attached to this movie. So I very much enjoyed it, and performances were astounding. Daniel Kaluuya, like the fact that he is able to embody that character in that way, with that accent, with that way of speaking, I was just really impressed by it all. So I second everyone's praise for this movie, and I think it will be an awards nominee.
Hopefully.
And yeah, hopefully if all is right in the world, which it isn't, but
Oh no, we might have another Spike Lee situation where the movie's too black to be nominated. Remember Black Klansman? It was the same thing where everyone thought Black Klansman was going to be nominated, and it didn't get. I think it got nominated for some stuff in other, but I don't think it got nominated for any of the Oscar stuff. But that same year, Green Book did, which was like the more lighthearted Black history movie.
It still
It
had
wasn't
the
as in your
white
face.
savior premise though.
Yeah.
In the end, that's the
That's what
10 a lot of
yeah.
Black movies I've seen get it, which is as long as they have the white savior in there, showing at least something.
Mhm.
But I guess it's the time for spoilers. So if you haven't watched it, go watch it, or pick up a history. Well, not a history book. This wouldn't be in history books. Go
Well,
Google it.
I did
Google
find,
it.
because Jonathan, to your point of finding out more information, immediately after this movie, I wanted to know more about the real story. And there's a movie on Amazon Prime called The Assassination of Fred Hampton. You do have to rent it. It's not free with the Prime subscription, but it's like $3 to rent it. And it's really just like, it's not a standard documentary where there's like interviews. It's just footage. It's just footage of Fred Hampton's speeches and some behind the scenes stuff of what he was doing during the time. So, if you want to know who Fred Hampton is and get to know him as the person, I highly advise watching that documentary where you kind of get to see him just before his final days.
Yeah, so in the small amount of research that I did between watching the movie and doing the podcast, because I watched it just a mere few hours ago, I looked up the some of the facts on the IMDb. The IMDb page, so you don't know if they're 100% true, but take these as they are IMDb facts. But in real life, Fred Hampton was actually only 21, and O'Neill was only 17. And that's crazy to think about, that the fact that they were so young in the movie. They apparently aged them up, so we're not supposed to believe that Fred Hampton or Daniel Kaluuya as Fred Hampton is 21. He's supposed to be 31 in the movie. But the fact that they were so young when all of this occurred was just insane to me.
I thought about that when he gets, I don't remember the number, but when he first gets sentenced to prison, and like, didn't they say like 2 to?
He got 2 to 5.
Yeah, like that's a long time, and I mean that still happens today, but that's a long time to process for someone whose brain it hasn't even fully developed yet.
For real.
Like at that age, that's so, and again, like we still do that today, which is unbelievable, but I just can't even imagine what was going through his head at the time, or like his loved ones, his partner being pregnant and stuff.
Yeah, he was very focused. Just watching the documentary alone to see him there's one part where these people came to talk to him about Black Panthers, like the Black Panthers helping to establish a bank. And he was they brought a proposal, but his big thing was, well, there's no mention of like expansion of this education program. And they were like, well, we don't really need that. Like the bank, it'll be the bank. And he's like, yeah, but without the education of how a bank runs, of what they need to do to like properly be in a bank, and like as far as like what proper processes a bank can do, what loans maybe they should go for, all of these things, it doesn't matter if you're a bank. You're just going to end up being like any other bank, just taking money from poor people to make yourselves rich. And it's like, it's really interesting to know that like at 21 years old, he has that concept of the world, of that, especially his community, that education is power. Money isn't power. Having a gun or blowing up buildings isn't power. Knowledge is power. And that's a hard concept for people who are our age to even grasp that concept. And to see like someone so young be so influential, especially because hearing him speak like the person, as opposed to like in the movie, the speeches are grand and big, but in reality, Fred Hampton, you could see like the rawness in him, that he's trying to be like great speakers that he looks up to, and so he flubs his lines sometimes, but it's his passion that gets through, and so he just keeps going forward, and people still listen to him and listen to what he has to say, and I think that's really cool.
Oh, yeah, I think that's great. And a lot of times when you do see activists, they have a charismatic personality to them that you see can definitely either has just personally been with them and they've gone to speak. So when you know somebody who doesn't have that charismatic, style, still trying so hard to show like, hey, I'm still a strong person. Sometimes I may not know like how to just stand in front of speak, but I know what to do. I know how to act and I have the knowledge to continue forward is really something truly powerful because you always see these people who stand in front and you're like, oh, they're the strong ones. The ones not speaking, they're kind of forgotten. But then here's this man who's trying to do just as much as the others, but he's really doing more behind the scenes. And you don't think about that because you're always so focused on somebody who's giving the speech. But he's done so much for his community. And that's why I was actually disappointed that I never knew who Fred Hampton was. Growing up in Chicago, I learned much about Italian culture. I learned much about the Irish culture, the Polish and the Mexican culture. Those were the big influences in my life. I knew very little about the Black culture that was in Chicago, sadly. Like I said, I did not know there was even a Black Panthers group there growing up. And I wish that was something I was taught at school when I was over there, that these people were doing so much for the Illinois chapter in Chicago because the school system there is awful in general, and then also growing up, not being Black, when you hear about the Black Panthers, you only hear about the bad stuff too. They make it seem like it's a scary thing. But growing up, as I learned more, I was like, no, they were just an activist group. Of course, there were some that, did it more with force, just like in every activist group. There was more who wanted to do speaking, and there was more who wanted to do more by education, you know, teaching people and making sure there was security and safety. They felt safe, which is a lack I think a lot of people of color in general feel in America still now, And so I wish growing up I had been able to see that. And I'm really kind of grateful for this movie to show a more delicate side of Black Panther, showing how he wanted to work on the education system, showing how he was, doing all this stuff to make the city better because he knew the power lied in the education and them, not having the guns or stuff like that, but more so growing as people. Because a lot of times, sadly, people don't see people of color as humans in a weird in an awful way, not a weird way, it's an awful way. So making them having them develop in their own person and becoming comfortable in their own skin, it takes away that false animalistic style that people put on people of color. And I thought that was real powerful. And I think although it's a Black focus, I think this is a great movie for any person of color to see. It shows a power and a positivity that can be when you just stand for what you believe, no matter what, and how you can take that to new levels, not by forcing people, but by being like, hey, we need to talk about this and like, we need to learn more and be better than what we have been treated as, which is something, again, I feel is a very powerful message. And I wish Fred Hampton had been more in my education growing up and people like him. So,
Yeah. And you mentioned how like a lot of the things that you had grown up seeing people talk about was that like the Black Panther Party was like quote unquote bad. And I think that's something that, Jesse Plemons' character Roy Mitchell, he kept emphasizing in the movie, the Black Panthers are just like the KKK. They're the same exact thing. First of all, let's talk about the fact that the two groups could not be like morally and fighting for opposing things. They couldn't be fighting for opposing things any further. And to go off your point of like the inclusivity and everything, I really appreciated the fact that even though it wasn't a major part of the movie, they did acknowledge the fact that there were also the I don't know what they were called, but the Latino Panthers, is that what they were called? Instead of the like they were like but
I
and
forget
the
what they were-
Latinos who
I
were
know what you're
also
talking
fighting
about, but I
against,
forget what they were
yes,
called.
Yeah.
yeah, and they made sure to acknowledge the fact that there were like a whole bunch of black and brown people who were fighting, you know, this fight.
Well, that was Fred
Mm-hmm.
Hampton's big thing, was unity. He was always about, like, he even said some of his speeches, like, people think the Black Panthers don't want white people to be a part of our community or whatever. He's like, nah, I'm here for all people, power to all people, for all of us to come together. It's just, he also wasn't blind to the reality that's hard to do.
That's where people were trying to make that horrible comparison between the Black Panthers and the KKK. Of course, the KKK only wants white people. It's all about, the false white power. And the Black Panthers were just like, no, we want unity. We want everybody to be together. We want to fight against the police brutality. We want to fight against this. It wasn't really, although it was, the Black Panthers, from my point of view, at least, I did see it as, no, we want to make the community stronger, because even though there is this separation, which again, I grew up with, there was this separation between cultures, but at the same time, we all kind of supported each other. I grew up in a mainly Polish neighborhood, and it never looked different to me. It was, this is my neighborhood. These are my people. That was it. And I think a lot of times people misunderstand that when somebody says like Black Panther or something like that, it's just like, oh, it must be only for Black people. No, not at all. It's something that they want to focus on. Yes, which there's nothing wrong with that. There should be sometimes a need of focus, because you can't just go for the big picture. You have to start with something small. You have to, have a goal and show that, hey, look, the goal worked. Hey, we were able to get there through this pattern. Let's now try to branch off. Let's try to grow more, and I think just that's a lot of where misinterpretation came for the Black Panther Party. Like I said, growing up, it was always viewed as an evil thing. They were viewed as crazy activists, a threat. But in reality, not true at all. And it's disappointing that I had to grow up with that, with that idea in my head. I wish it was absolutely different. And this movie definitely showed that point of view, which I, again, really loved.
I don't think that it's like a misinterpretation as much as it was like deliberate propaganda, though. Like, misinterpretation to me is like, this was presented and like people took it the wrong way, but like that's not what was happening really at all. It was like the Black Panthers had to be shown as like this violent, like comparing it to the KKK, like they had to be shown as this like very violent group, because then other people wouldn't want to band with them. Like, when I was watching the movie and Fred Hampton goes into, I think they're the Young Patriots, I think is what they were called.
Mm-hmm.
Like that white group.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of that Malcolm X quote where he's like, we're not outnumbered, we're out organized. In that, like, we as people, a big part of like keeping us separated by race is so that we don't all gather together to like fight against this capitalist society, which is really what he says. He's like, we're not trying to make Black capitalists, like we're trying to like break down capitalism. But we can't focus on that if we're only trying to like make Black billionaires, then like we sort of lose sight of what we're looking at. So I think he was like, I don't want to say ahead of his time, because there were lots of people who were saying this stuff at that time. It just feels almost discouraging that I feel like a lot of the rhetoric and a lot of the narratives that have been put forth in the past few years, starting with like Occupy Wall Street, Black Lives Matter, just like the growing wealth inequality, is they were saying all of that stuff back then. And we're just really just repeating it because I'm not going to say that like nothing's changed, but like nothing's changed, really.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. It was propaganda, not a misinterpretation. No, and I completely get what you're saying. Growing up, I grew up very poor in a household where I had to live with like 14 people, and sometimes I wouldn't eat breakfast because I wasn't up fast enough. I was a little thing, and breakfast would be done and I couldn't eat that day. So like I understand his narrative where he's like, it's not necessarily that you want to, make one race higher than the other, but it starts with your neighborhood. But the problem is with a lot of the separations of neighborhoods. It's such a focus on let's fix just, starting here. But of course, like in Chicago, like I said, we were so separated too. We were all next to each other, but we were still separated. You didn't go to one neighborhood because that was, the Polish neighborhood. You didn't go to the Italian neighborhood during certain hours and times, which is, really horrible. It was a separation of, cultures and races and things like that. And one of the things that kept us all that way was because of the poverty too. You ended up being like, well, I have to protect my own in a way above all. And that is a mindset that does get dangerous sometimes because it's not, you don't need to just protect yourself, but you need to work with others as well to create a safer community.
And I'm not from Chicago, obviously. I'm from this area, but my understanding of like neighborhoods in New York and Chicago, places like that, because you're taught like Polish and Italian people, like those people are still white. So like that to me seems less like we're separating ourselves by race and more like we're separating ourselves by like people who
Origin.
speak our same language. Yeah. Like
Right. Well,
when people
that's why
first
I said
came,
like culture and race. Because
yeah.
you're right. Yeah, they are white, but white people often don't view them as white, which is I find always odd.
I
They
mean, yeah,
literally,
there's like
yeah,
historical reasons for that as well.
that
But
is that
I
is true. Yeah.
I am like to go because I think, which is fun. This is my last point on Fred Hammond Hampton because I wanted to also talk about Lakeith Stanfield a little too. But one of the major things is there's a soundtrack to this movie as music inspired. They wanted to get a lot of Chicago artists to be on it, which they did. And I haven't listened to it yet. I've only heard one song, which is the song they put at the end credits.
That Her song?
Yeah, by Her.
That was amazing. I had to Shazam that. I was like, this is
But one of the people in particular they asked to be on it, and she denied it, was No Name, formerly No Name Gypsy.
Okay, yeah.
They asked No Name to be on it, which she said that she was like, I didn't want to be on it because, and her opinion is that it doesn't. It's her criticism is that she saw the movie and she liked it. She was like, it's got great acting, it's got a great message, but it's not enough about Fred Hampton. This is a movie about an FBI agent. And so I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think? Because that is true. Like Fred Hampton, even though he's a magnet to your eyes and your senses when he's on screen, most of this movie really is about Lakeith Stanfield. So what did you guys think?
Whose character's name was Bill O'Neill.
Yes, Bill O'Neill.
One of if you would have asked me who was the main character of this film, I would have said that it was William O'Neill. And I thought, first of all, Lakeith Stanfield did an amazing job in the role. You could really feel how guilty he felt about what he was doing in his performance. But also to your point about, people maybe having a problem with the fact that it is centered around him and not Fred Hampton. There is I was reading before this that the trial of the Chicago 7, I haven't seen it yet. Apparently it is
Heartbreaking film.
Yes, heartbreaking, and the character of William O'Neill, the person, is more of a side or background character. I'm thinking that maybe the movie wanted to portray more of his point of view, just to see that dichotomy of him having to, live in this world and operate as a double agent against this person who was so beloved and did so much for his community. I think that and on screen that dichotomy worked really well for me. So I had no issue really with it. And I guess that I could add another question onto it, which would be, what do you guys think we should like feel about William O'Neill? Because he was a rat essentially. But if you think about his origin, he started out as, you know, in real life, a kid, 17 or however old he was, stealing cars and doing all this. And essentially the only way he could get out of it was to be a double agent, or to be in, what's the word? To work for the FBI. So what do you guys think about that as well? To add to Jerome's question.
I definitely see No Name's point. I guess I went into the movie not thinking it was just about Fred Hampton, or that it was like a Fred Hampton movie, because the title is literally about two people. Like Judas and the Black Messiah like refers to two different characters. So I don't think I really went into it thinking that it was a Fred Hampton movie. I thought it was going to be about like the betrayal. And I think that anytime we bring up like the FBI's COINTELPRO like thing is just like so important that we're even acknowledging that, because if you like even try to research that, like so much of just the FBI's record keeping has been shady forever. So like there's not a lot of info, and a lot of people don't even like still to this day don't know about those programs or that program. So I think that anytime we like talk about it and talk about how like they like murdered Black people is like basically what happened. They assassinated Black people and tried to, you know, paint them as like people who were a lot scarier when like those groups were feeding kids. Like, come on, let's get it together. And like defending themselves on like in a country that we were forcibly like brought to, or our ancestors were forcibly brought to.
During the 13th with like Angela, they talked about that with the Angela Davis situation.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I, on that front, I actually don't have an issue with it. I think that it was fine. As far as your question, Jonathan, I feel like I'd have to think about it more, because it really is like they definitely took advantage of him. Like I wish, it's so easy, you know, like 60 years later to be like, well, this is what I would have done. But like, I don't know what I would have done had I been in his position. Like you saw how conflicted he was when they asked him to, you know, do the blueprint of the apartment. And I mean, he like died by suicide essentially. So like he felt really, really guilty about it. And it is really, really hard. I mean, I can't say that I like know how he felt at all, or like, yeah, it's a really difficult situation, especially given that like how scary that time would have been, like being Black. And I think like the part that really stands out to me is I think the parts where they're talking about it was like what in New Haven, I think it was, that they found out that someone was like an informant and like talked about what they did to him, and you can just see how he's like terrified. And the part where he's in the car after they go to meet with the Crowns, I think it was.
Yeah.
And they like, one of the guys is like, that's the guy who stole so and so's car. And then that girl, that woman, and that guy in the car like challenge him, and they're like, what are they talking about, a badge? And you can, I mean, his performance was incredible, because as the audience, knowing exactly what's going on, we can tell that he's lying, and he like did it well enough that like you can tell how hard he's trying to convince these people that he's not lying, and you almost believe it. But like with the audience knowing that, oh, he's lying, is he going to be able to get out of this? It was just so good. I thought his performance was great. Really.
Informant, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, I said that earlier, but I don't think
for me, I didn't really know too much about the, you know, the people in the film, but I did know it was going to be about like two people, like Jazmine said, with the name. I knew some big betrayal was coming, because you don't use the name Judas unless somebody's really getting screwed over. So I didn't really know what I was, walking into when I was watching this film, which I think helped me not think about it being a Fred Hampton movie or, a Bill O'Neill movie. It was just something I was kind of watching about how these two people revolved around each other, not knowing too much the truth about each other, but, still one going to betray, even though he saw the good. As for how I felt about Bill O'Neill's character or person, like I said, growing up the way I did, and in the family I had, unfortunately, I did have the mindset of, in the end, you have to survive. Doesn't matter who's hurt. It doesn't matter who, is walking with you. In the end, you need to get home alive. And to this day, sometimes I still hold that mindset. It's like, I don't care. I will end up, it's for me and I need to survive. And I try not to have that mindset anymore. I don't want to have that mindset anymore, that it's just me and my survival, because I feel like maybe that was good at that time, but now it feels like, well, no, now I feel like so many people have done so much for me and helping me grow and helping me become the person I should not want to just think about my survival. I should care and want their survival, want them to go. So I kind of emphasize, not emphasize. Empathize. Thank you. So I see you have a problem with that word. With him a little bit, because I literally had a family member tell me once, when it comes down to you and another person, throw them under the bus. Just throw them under the bus. It doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter what. Throw them under the bus and come home. That's it. That's your job in life. That's your goal. Just get back home. Which is such a dangerous mindset, and it's such a conflicting one, because of the people you grow close with. You don't want to do that to them, but because you're taught this way, you're kind of in a force to do. But seeing that and seeing how it played out and everything, I got angry at him, because how dare he do it? How dare he do this to this? Yeah, to this good man. Yeah, who's helping.
Too.
Yeah. So seeing that and knowing the mindset I grew up with, I kind of got a little angry with myself a little bit, because I was like, I know I haven't betrayed anybody that big, but I've definitely stepped back when I could have helped somebody else because of how I grew up. And so it was kind of well, thank God I never got into bigger trouble, because honestly, I don't know what I would do in a bigger trouble. I don't know if my upbringing would have caused me to become something like him, where I turn my back on good people, or if I would, just go to jail or something like that. Luckily, I've never been in that place. I hope to never be in that place. So it was kind of like a personal hit when I saw his character. So it was kind of this weird, I get you, I don't want to get you, and I'm pissed at you. That was the emotions that were feeling. I don't want to understand why you did what you did, but I understand well. And now knowing, I did not know he was 17 years old. Now knowing that he was 17 years old hits even a bigger spot with me, because I'm like, oh crap, I remember being that age. I would have definitely probably turned on the people I knew, sadly. And I've known family members who have turned on our other family members. So there wasn't that unity we even had, which is very sad. I have a good unity now with my sister and my mother. I'd help them bury a body. They helped me bury a body. So Jerome was disturbed by that in the last podcast.
Theoretically, you're
sure theoretically.
It sounded a little bit like I helped them bury a body. So just
it did. It sounded like
clarify,
a confession.
It did sound a little bit.
No bodies have been buried.
The Zoom audio is a little.
Nobody has killed anybody. No bodies have been buried. I have not dug any holes, nor has my sister or my mother, but we would if necessary. So
no,
yeah,
I think his age is relevant for sure.
Definitely.
It's definitely.
It plays a bigger part. Because if you just think about being in high school, I mean, we all just wanted to hide away. And I don't know about your guys' high school, but I was in a predominantly white high school. And sometimes it was like, I don't want to be seen because I don't know how these other students are going to treat me, because they definitely did see my color sometimes. They would make rapid judgments like, oh, you are from Mexico. Oh, you do speak Spanish. I'm like, no, I'm not. So coming in that, I'm like, I don't know how they're going to be. And I just want to be invisible for a bit. So being 17 and knowing that now, it's like, he's just a kid, man.
I almost wish they had gotten actors that were closer to the ages of when this happened, because I think it would have brought some relevancy to this piece. That, granted, as is, it's still a great movie, well acted, well directed, everything. But the added aspect of why, of how desperate Bill O'Neill was at that time, of how radical Fred Hampton was at that time, being so young, it impacts that, because they're both so young at the time of them accomplishing so many of these things. Although, because I was angry at Will O'Neill's story of hearing that he killed himself, because I felt like, on one hand, I did watch an interview with Keith Stanfield where the interviewer asked him how he felt about playing Bill O'Neill. And he said he had to take therapy after doing that role, because he just got so into it and dealing with the stress of playing that character and thinking about all the things that Bill O'Neill did in his life. Because he still worked for the FBI after the assassination of Fred Hampton.
Of course they wouldn't let him go.
Yeah, he never stopped being an informant for certain things. And all of that weight, just compounded on him till he killed himself. And I was angry about that, because I was like, I really wanted that story to be, the ending of that story to be that William O'Neill finally had his freedom and did the right thing in the end, as opposed to he did all this stuff because he kind of was trapped, and his only out was to kill himself. So that's a shame in and of itself. But that being said, I think Lakeith Stanfield does an amazing job playing the character. I think he sells the desperate nature of this character, of this person, but also sells his transformation as he goes from being this dude who's just I don't really care about anything, I'm just trying to boost cars and live life, to a guy who actually becomes a Black Panther, and he's a part of the mission, he's part of the movement. And if it wasn't for the fact that he has to keep doing these things for the FBI, he probably would just stick with the Panthers and be a legit Black Panther.
See, that's what I think is really, going back to your question that you posed, Jonathan, that's what I thought was really interesting, because the part where he's, again, I've never been faced with going to prison, so I can't imagine how terrified he was. But lots of Panthers went to prison, and to this day, lots of people go to prison because they're so committed to the cause that I knew how it ended, of course, but I do think it's interesting that he didn't pick that choice in some ways. He was really, really young and everything. But if he was starting to be influenced by the Panthers, and I'm thinking of the point where he's at the phone booth and he's talking to him, and he was he's talking to the FBI guy, and he's he's basically saying no, you're in this for a few more years. It was right after that shootout.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want out. I was almost killed. Fred Hampton's in jail. What more do you want from me? And he's like, no, you're in this for a few more years. I think it was interesting that his option wouldn't have been okay, well, then I'm just gonna go to prison,
right,
then, rather than do this, because I think that would have been, again, this is so easy to say because we've never been in this position, but that would have been the noble thing to do and the right thing to do, rather than like serve as an informant for this group that was like trying to like liberate Black people.
And you wonder if it would have been the easy thing to do as well.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah,
Yeah, because
especially oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
I'm just thinking like by that point he didn't know that like they wanted to kill him, Fred Hampton. But like I did, again, like I already knew the story, but like I think if I hadn't known the story and he had been faced with like, here, like we want you to do the blueprint, like I feel like for some people that would have been the point where they were like, oh, okay, so I'll go to prison now, actually, rather than do this.
I
You
think
know,
he
like I'd like
also,
to think that that's like what most people would choose. I'd like to think.
I think
but
it's also he didn't know that even after Fred Hampton, he would still be forced to work with the FBI for so long. That to
so
the
you think
end,
that maybe he thought like that would be it, like once
yeah,
they
that
kill
he'd
Fred
be
Hampton,
free,
then
he'd
he's
be
out.
able to live his life. They gave him money, they gave him a gas station, right?
Yeah.
They gave him some type of business. He probably thought, hey, I can now just go live my life. But they still kept him, chained to them. And I think had he known that, like you say, it's something you can speculate now, but you don't know in that moment, that suicide would not have been his answer in the end, because he felt trapped, he felt cornered, he felt, who knows what he really felt in the end. So had he maybe just made the decision to go to prison, could have ended up weirdly saving his life in the end. But you're right. It's easier to speculate than, what, because I've never been in that situation. As far as I know, you guys have not been in that situation. I don't know Jonathan's whole history. Maybe there's a reason
unless someone needs to start
Jonathan, you seem to be quite
history right now.
You seem to be quite quiet during this.
You wonder if I was okay for
I mean, he is an actor. We don't know what he
Yeah.
what he really is. Here's your name.
for all of
Jonathan,
I know it's easy to speculate, but I'll just debunk the rumors right now. I have no affiliation with any of these things.
Step 1, start a podcast. Step 2,
wonder,
take over the world.
You wonder if maybe he was thinking in his mind, or maybe the FBI was hinting at him that, if you go to prison and then you get out, these people will know what you've done, and you're gonna face even more hell than you would have if you just have worked for us, and we'll keep your secret safe. If you just continue to work for us, then you can retire easily. But if you go to prison, it's going to be a lot more difficult for you.
Which goes back to the whole thing Jazmine said about propaganda. They made, the Black Panther seem more scary and more like,
well, the thing
mimicking them to the KKK, where it's just, it's either
Panther,
serve them or death.
They would now that granted, that is one thing that is like, and this isn't a Black Panther thing. This is a Black gangs thing. Even to this day, that you betray a Black gang, they will have your ass.
That's
like,
any
that's
gang.
Not.
That's any gang. You
Yeah,
betray
that's true.
any
That's
gang.
any gang. Like they don't. That now that was one thing they will. They don't put up with people.
I would have believed that the FBI would have killed him before, because the FBI, especially under J. Edgar Hoover, had funsies killing Black people.
That's true.
J. Edgar Hoover was a straight up bastard.
I almost feel like it would have been easier for them though, especially because the FBI guys talked about the killing the killing of the other informant. Mm-hmm. So I almost feel like that would have been easier for them to just get
release him into whatever.
Basically like that. That makes a lot of sense that they might have used that against him.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, like if you don't do this for us, like we're gonna let them know, and that's even scarier than prison.
One thing before, because we're coming up on an hour, so before we I want to make sure we spend some time to talk about some of the other characters too, like Dominique Fishback,
I was about to mention
some of the other actors, especially Dominique Fishback. She holds her own,
Mhm.
because Dan Kaluuya is an acting powerhouse in this movie, and Dominique Fishback's like, you ain't the only actor in this movie though. Let me show you what I can do real quick. And
She brought
just
the
Yeah.
heart. She
she
brought the heart.
brings it,
Jerome
man.
likes to talk about the heart and the soul and the brain. Dominique Fishback. She brought the
when
heart
she
out.
says that poem, like, first of all, I got
Mhm.
chills because it reminded me of her role in Power with Jamie Foxx, where she's a
Project
rapper.
Power.
Yeah, Project Power. And I'm like,
I haven't
there,
seen
there
that.
she goes spitting bars again. I don't think Dominique Fishback at this point will ever do a movie where she's not spitting some poetry or some bars now forever. Even though Chica wrote all of her lines for her, still, I think she's got talent in to be a rapper one day. But that poem she read in this movie was really powerful moment. I think that's, if she does get nominated, they're gonna play that as their reel for like nominating Dominique Fishback. Am I a bad mother? That's gonna play. But I think she did an amazing job. She's incredible. I'm
Mhm.
glad to see her in more stuff. I can't wait to see what she goes on to do after this. And I think she does a great job of playing a decent duality, where you see her go from being this woman who's a part of the movement to this mother who's still part of the movement, but now has a different perspective on it, has a different
Mhm.
outlook on it, because now it's not, yeah, like gun ho, let's go fight the pigs. Like, now it's like, well, now I got a son. I can't,
Mhm.
I don't know if fighting the pigs head on, at least, is the right way to go. Maybe there's another way we can do it. Maybe there's another way we can still live by the mission without risking Black lives, especially Black men at that.
I think it was like a
Mhm.
big step into like kind of a representation of actually like becoming a queen and a ruler. Yeah, she went from like gung ho to like, well, let's all like take a look at other routes now. And it was that really, it had that, to me, it had this like weird, like almost queen feel to it. Like, let's take a different path now. And now here's the next generation we must focus on. This is the era that, we need to make sure gets put on the right path so they don't have many casualties as us, and they don't see us as this violent group just out to kill cops. Yeah, so it gave me a very sense of like a royalty move, where it was just like you grew as you grew, and now you're like going from like a knight and fighting to like a more higher position, where you're like, all right, now we got to figure out new stuff. Now no more blood in battle, we need to make sure everybody's life is safe. um I've never seen her in another movie or that I know of. So this was my first introduction to her. And yeah, she was such a great actress. She was very powerful in, in pretty much all her scenes. She was very powerful. I didn't have that much
Mhm.
connection with the poem, but I'm emotionally constipated. So that might be why. Like, I know who
This
I
is
am.
this is the third movie that I've seen her in, and she's really like on the rise. I saw her in, like Jerome mentioned, Project Power, and she was also in The Hate You Give. And in both of those, yeah, she
Who
played
was she in The Hate You Give?
she played uh
Oh, I'm looking
Star,
at
the
him.
main character, her good friend at the party before Algie Smith, who was also in this movie,
Oh,
gets
I
shot.
forgot he was in that movie. Yeah.
Hold on, I'm looking it up, Jazz.
Wait, she played Red?
She played who? Wait, what?
Wait, who did she play?
She played Kenya. Okay, I just looked it up now on IMDb. Kenya in The Hate You Give. She was only in it for like
Jazmine
a
just
few
disappeared.
minutes. Jasmine's so shook she left the chat.
Hang on, I'm looking it up.
She's like,
But she
Because those are like completely different.
people,
Yeah, right?
right? Because in the movies that I've seen her in before, she's played like teenagers, and in this one, she played
yeah,
like
she plays a, that's why
Adult.
a woman.
Okay.
when I found
That's
out that she was
why,
playing
yeah,
this
that's why I'm
character,
getting thrown off right now. I'm like,
because
that is not the same human. Okay,
I
I get
looked her
it.
up,
Okay, I got you. I got
and then
you.
I was like, is that it said Dominique Fishback? I'm like, why does that name sound familiar? And then it was like, actress from Project Power. I'm like, that's the same little girl from Project Power, which she wasn't little in that movie, but
And
it's
that
just
movie
when
only
I
got released like 8 months ago.
Well, actually, I looked it up. I was like, well, how old is she? She's 29. She just
Black
looks
don't
like
crack.
she's like
What?
she's
Wow.
29 years
Black don't
old.
crack.
She just looks like she's like possibly 17, 16 years old. Like she is almost in her 30s.
I mean, yeah, I don't feel like in this movie she looked quite 29. Like I didn't think that she looked that.
No, I thought she was
I
like
would
maybe
say,
in her
like-
20s, like
like
early
early
I
20s.
thought,
to
like,
mid 20s.
Same.
Yeah.
I would say
22.
early 20s.
Yeah, like
But
20.
like now I'm thinking back to The Hate U Give and just like compared to like Amandla, I'm like, oh, she's like a baby, right?
Right.
Because like everyone in that movie
She's just got a baby
Is a
at
baby.
youth were like
That's right.
young.
She's got a baby face.
Okay.
That's all. Because Algie Smith is also like he's an adult, but he still looks like he's like 16 years old. And
Especially in this movie.
Yeah, but
he
that
brought
kind of
me,
weirds
like,
me out when people have such strong baby faces like that. It's like you almost in your 30s, but you can pass as a 17-year-old at certain points. It's
heck,
like,
technically, as long as I keep the beard, people don't know I'm 17. Don't think I'm 17. But as soon as I shave all my facial hair off, I got teachers walking up to me. Shouldn't you be in homeroom, young man? I'm 25. Leave me alone.
I guess we're kind of wrapping it up now, so I guess we can get to our final our rankings and our final words about the movie. Let's start with Jerome. What is your ranking and final thoughts on the movie?
My ranking for this is definitely an A+. I definitely recommend this movie. I think overall it is a great testament to Fred Hampton's legacy to show off him as both a leader but also as the person behind the scenes, like who he was when he was in his most private moments too, and the things he stood for. I think they definitely, if the movie was focused on him, they would have dived deeper. But because the movie's also focused on Bill O'Neill, in fact, more so than Fred Hampton, I think it also does a great job of showing Bill O'Neill's, feelings of being trapped and his reluctance to be the Judas that he's titled for in this movie. But he unfortunately had to be, in his own mind, to just to survive, to not spend the rest of his days in a jail cell. I think overall, like, it tells the story really well. Shaka King does an amazing job telling this story and giving it the proper weight and context, of showing everybody in a very complex way. I think the only people who are like completely one-dimensional is probably the FBI. Not so much Roger Mitchell, but definitely like the behind the scenes people like Hoover and stuff. Also, the only person, if I have a criticism, is whoever did the makeup for Hoover. All right. Martin Sheen with that makeup looks like a Batman villain. I was like, is the Penguin out here trying to get black people? Don't you have Batman to fight or something?
hey, don't insult the Penguin. He was all for the white and black.
He looks terrible. Very funny.
No, he does. He looks terrible.
He looked terrible. I was like, y'all got to run that back and put him back in the chair. But other than that, though, it was a good movie. Definitely watch it if you get a chance, in theaters, and you can be safe about it. Because this is the first movie this year that I was like, man, I want to see this in theaters. Like, if theaters were open, I would go see this movie.
Do you really, when you could just watch it with a click on HBO Max?
I'll tell you, like, listen, some movies, like I believe this movie, because it's a lower, I'm sure it's a lower budget, whatever. Like, I would have appreciated to watch it. I would have willingly given this
to like support
my money to
everything.
support
I don't
it
know.
and
Mhm.
give it its due. It deserves to be seen on the big film. But if you can't, watch it on HBO Max while it's still there. And enjoy and have a good time. And watch this double feature. If this movie pisses you off, watch One Night in Miami. It'll cheer you right back up. Great double feature. All right, I'm done. That's it.
Jazmine, what were your thoughts on this movie? And do you have a grade? We usually do our grading system, but you don't have to give a grade if you don't want to.
I would definitely give it an A. I really enjoyed it. I think it was very well done and the performances were fantastic. I would say I think it's a good intro, especially if you don't know a lot about the civil rights movement post Malcolm X, post Dr. King. I think it's a very good intro into COINTELPRO and just Fred Hampton and the Black Panthers in general. I think a lot of people still to this day don't quite know much about the Black Panthers. Like, I think that there was a bit of a spike when Beyonce did her Super Bowl, when she introduced Formation.
Right.
And there was like a bit there, but I think a lot of people still don't know like the details, and it did a very good job into introducing that.
I was gonna say that and accidental Google searches when Black Panther came out, where it's like, this is the Black Panther I wanted to know.
True.
About this
they probably got to some websites and they're like, oh, I learned history now.
What is this political party stuff? I want to know about the Chadwick Boseman, that guy.
which Ryan Coogler was involved with both.
Yeah, he did help produce this.
Yes, that's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was very. I'm just very happy that it didn't go in like the white savior direction. Absolutely. I don't know how it would have. They would have had to really try.
Right.
Well, they would have if they turned Roger Mitchell into a guy who's like, you know what? No, Bill, you don't need to go back there. All right, they're trying to kill Black people. I'm no longer going to be an FBI agent.
I mean, they could have like just
Roger Mitchell and his
a white barkeeper be like, hide in the back real quick. FBI's coming. That he probably would have gotten nominated.
He had 3 lines.
Hide in the back. It's fine.
Hide in the back.
Best supporting actor.
Alex, what do you think? And your grade?
I probably would give this movie a B. Just because with a lot of biopics, even though I don't know the history, I know there's probably historical inaccuracies, as there are with all movies like that. Just like with The Age, I think it would have been way more powerful had I known the guy was 17 and 21. I think it would have been way more powerful and inspiring for younger people too, because they were able to see, hey, I'm that age, I can do more. I keep thinking I can't, but look, they did it. I can do it. I would have liked to see because we saw The Handler, but I would have liked to see the more effects the FBI did have, especially J. Edgar Hoover. He was an evil man. He just wanted, So I would have liked to see a little bit of that and like the damage they had done already and why Fred Hampton was such a threat to them. Why instead of being like, oh, Malcolm X and MLK, why this one was the messiah to them. Why this one felt like almost the biggest threat, that they had to bring in somebody like a Judas to take him down and tear him down from the inside, and all this to why just like why this one was so much more important than the others, why he was considered the messiah, and what they had already done and the destruction and pain they have caused throughout multiple communities. I did think it was very interesting. I got to learn so much more, even about my own city, which I think is wonderful. I enjoyed that the Black Panthers did meet with, the Latin community, which was a nice showing of, because there is this horrible narrative as well that Latin people and Black people don't get along. They hate each other, which is often ridiculous, but it is a popular narrative that people think. And it was nice to see that unity in those communities and be like, yeah, we have a lot of differences, but in the end, we just all want to be at peace in our homes. We don't have to want to worry about, going out. Growing up, I was told, always comply with the cops. My mom literally told me once, I'd rather pick you up in jail than have to see you at the morgue, which is not something you should tell a child. You shouldn't have to say that to them, So seeing that they were joining together was a nice kind of visual for me to see that, like, we could have all just protected each other in the end. It was a unity moment. But mainly it was just the reason I just mark it down is because I don't think they're showing the darkness enough of what was really going on. They did focus a lot on Bill O'Neill, which I think was important and kind of his struggle, but they didn't show why it was so hard for him to come to this decision. Because we were able to speculate, but maybe because we didn't see how big of a threat the FBI was probably to him, the threats they made, the damage they've already done. They still downplayed what J. Edgar Hoover did in those times. He, he was going after such a large community completely out of fear and prejudice. And I think had we known the darkness that they were doing, the true evil, we could have seen why Bill O'Neill was really so scared in the end to continue.
Mm.
I think that we could have seen why Fred Hampton was really considered a messiah, other than just helping the community, why he was a threat to them. And I think that left out a big part of the story in the end. So that's why I'm like a B. It's a great movie, and I think people need to see it. It's an interesting story that I wish would be taught in schools to take away that propaganda that the Black Panthers are, this radical hate group that unfortunately I was taught as well growing up. So
that is all. It's all fair and valid.
I'd say if you want to know more, watch the 13th. They get into it. About why the FBI was after so many different Black leaders during that time period.
Yeah.
Outside of just like Black Panthers, just people in general. Angela Davis, Bobby Seale, Mega Evans, like all types of people.
Well, I know how much damage they were doing when it came to like MLK and Malcolm X, but sadly that is a lot of where my knowledge ends. And yeah, I probably will learn a little bit more and get more information about it, because I think that's just a good thing to do. Because I speak a lot about the whitewashing of history and not listening to sometimes what the history teachers tell you. There's always more to the story. And then there's these moments where I'm like, no, I don't know enough about, other cultures, other races in this country. And, I should get more informative, because in the end, we all just want to feel safe walking down the street. We don't want to live in fear. And seeing those two things right next to each other, with being directly Bill O'Neill being stuck and trapped with the FBI, to just Fred Hampton, both had that general fear, but were in such different places in their life. But it was still the same fear. I just want to be able to see tomorrow. So, what about you, Jonathan?
What you were just saying about wanting to learn more about this, I definitely, after watching this movie, want to research and learn more about this whole story. William O'Neill's story was really interesting to me, in the sense that the guilt that he felt, and I felt like I said earlier, that was very well portrayed by Lakeith Stanfield. The fact that he committed suicide on the day that documentary aired on PBS. It's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't know that until watching this movie, actually. I knew
same.
that he had died by suicide, but I did not know it was the same day.
I assumed it watching the movie. I'm like, I feel like the only way this ends is him committing suicide. And so when I
read that, I gasped like audibly, because it's just it puts a little bit of his thought process into perspective. But to my rating, I was debating between a couple ratings, but I'll give it an A, and probably about like a 94. That's right, y'all. If you listened to our episode last week, and my rating, I gave this movie the same as Malcolm and Marie. At me. So
we will get at it after this podcast.
I don't
go on
at all. But you go.
We will get to that later. Jonathan, tell us why.
So I really appreciated, like we've all mentioned, the fact that we're getting to learn about this story, or learn further about this story. Some of the lines in particular, I wrote some of them down, really got me. I laughed a couple times. There was one line where Dominic Fishback, as Deborah Johnson, I believe her name was, she said, Fred Hampton had asked her, "How do you like your coffee?" And she said, "Black and sweet." And I laughed at that. I also laughed. I also laughed when Will O'Neill said, "Let's blow up City Hall," and just the look on Daniel Kaluuya's face, he was just like disgusted. He was like, "Brother." I laughed at that as well.
Made me laugh because I was like, "Is that the way?" That's like a reverse when Black Panther was like, "You gonna betray me?" I forgot his character, Wakabi from freaking Black Panther, when Daniel Kaluuya betrays Black Panther.
But yeah, and some of the words I also wrote down that were very poignant to me. Was when he was discussing, him and Fred and Deborah were discussing. Sorry, I'm horrible with like names. I'm great with actor names, but horrible with like character names in movies. But when they were discussing the metaphor from the speech that they were referencing, and he was saying if someone alerts you of a fire, you accuse them of starting the fire. I just thought that was really poignant, especially today when people always say that, oh, the people who talk about race, they're the problems, they're the ones who are starting all the issues, when it's like, no, just because of the fact that people are talking about it, that doesn't mean that they're starting the issue. And I thought that was really poignant.
Yeah, that was also powerful.
Yes, it got to me. And also the point that made me really upset, well, many points made me really upset, but one that really got me was when the cops were outside of the apartment, and there's the one cop harassing everybody on the street, all the Black people on the street. He's like, "Oh, hey, Harriet Tubman. Oh, never mind, it's Aunt Jemima." And then they get surprised when a shootout begins, and it's like, what do you expect to happen? What was the intended outcome? But overall, I thought this movie was really effective, and I think it brought to light a story that wasn't brought to light before necessarily for a lot of people. And in this day and age, I think it's very necessary to tell this story and others that are maybe overlooked. So yeah.
You made me think about the other thing that was really powerful, and I only bring it up because it feels so modern, is the Jake Winters thing with Algie Smith, where after he dies, Fred Hampton goes to his mom, and his mom is like, make sure that people know that Jake Winters, like, they call him a killer, and he did that, but that's not all he did. And it made me think about all of the many Black people, Black men and women, who've been murdered by police brutality. And a lot of times, especially Black men, they always want to reference, well, this person had a record, and therefore that justifies them being killed in this one. This is like, okay, maybe that is what they did, but that's not all they did. That's not who they were. That's what they did. That's not the person. And so that really hit me when she said that.
Yeah, definitely.
It reminds me, so again, like at the end of the movie where they talk about how many shots were fired by the FBI, and it was 99. And then I believe it was one, right? By the people, and that everyone, like the 7 who survived, were charged with like multiple things, including attempted murder, right? Am I remembering that right? I don't want to like mess it up.
No, you are.
But they were charged basically bullshit charges, is my point. And how we still see that today in many different ways, you know, like times where, like, depending on the state, depending on you know, your age, your license, like some folks are allowed to carry guns, but like that changes when it's a white person and a Black person getting stopped in the car, right? It's like, even if a Black person is legally allowed to carry this gun, legally allowed to have it in their car, makes it known that they have a weapon on them, and they get shot, all of a sudden the narrative is like, well, you shouldn't have had a gun.
Yeah.
But that's not how we feel about white people carrying guns to the Capitol last month.
Mhm.
You know, like, it was, I think that really, really hit me that, like, they got one, and they had guns in the place.
They had assault rifles.
And they had people coming in. You know, I think a lot of people, and this is just terrifying to me, but a lot of people, and I think we all know who I'm talking about, get very trigger happy. Like, you see a lot of this stuff online where it's like, well, I almost hope that someone like breaks into my house so I can shoot them. Like, not understanding like what that really even means.
Oh yeah.
To do that, and like wanting something to happen to be able to pull the trigger. But we all know that that's only for one group of people, and it's not anyone on this call right now.
Right. No, I absolutely
and that like
agree
really
with you.
killed me, because if someone had broken into my house and I didn't know who you were, and you fired 99 shots at me, and I got arrested for firing one back, I would have an issue with that.
Yeah.
And that's still something that we're dealing with today.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, I've seen multiple videos on TikTok where these people, because like I've gone to shooting ranges, I do own a gun and I keep it safely put away and everything like that. But I've seen multiple videos of these like people practicing shooting where they literally have it right here and it's like close range, and it's like, what are you exactly preparing for that you think you need to do this quick draw? What are you hoping for? Because I keep mine in a secure location because I hope I never have to draw it. I do keep a bat by my bed in case somebody breaks in, because I want to immobilize them first. I never want to kill somebody. I never have a desire to draw out a gun. If I find it necessary, I will, but never in my life have I ever thought, well, I have to be quick with it. Oh, well, I have to make sure I know the points that kill. Never in my life have I ever thought that if I use a gun, it's a warning shot. If I use a gun, it's going to be hit in a place where it takes them down, but it does not cause blood loss and it's not going to hurt them. I've learned points in the body where it's like, if you shoot here, this is one of the safest places because it's not near any major arteries or anything like that. So to see these people constantly, it is scary, because it's like, what are you trying to prep for? What are you trying to do? And you don't want to think about what they're thinking about in that moment, because it's usually, for certain groups of people that they're trying to prepare for. And it's like, it's terrifying. Yeah. But in the end, I think this movie is really great, for people, for people of color in general to see, and for people like me who didn't know a lot of history with the Black Panthers, other than sadly the ugly side of it. It was a nice thing to see that, like, hey, this isn't the radical group I was taught to believe it was. There were people who were trying to make things better. There were people who were trying to work with the community. And I think this is a great movie that leads you to want to learn more. And I hope to learn more too. I think it's a great way. You're right. It's a great introduction.
In fact,
this
reminds me of our Selena review where we talked about how the Selena show didn't really feel like it garnered you to want to know more about the Quintanillas.
They're just awful people.
I feel like this is the opposite. Like this makes you want to know more about the Black Panther Party and everything. And it came out the right month. I want to talk about perfect timing. It came out.
They may have planned it that way.
You're right.
I'm sure they did, but it still doesn't change the fact that, like, they couldn't plan for what 2020 would be. That
nobody could plan what 20 would be.
Yeah, but I'm, like all the stuff with George Floyd and all the stuff with President Trump and all that stuff. Like, this is a good movie to come out on the next former President
Trump.
This is like a good movie to come out with for the
I prefer the way SNL refers to him, former social media influencer.
Not anymore. They pretty much banned him, which I
That's
love.
why it's former.
On stage did
I
a
like the way
Twitter
SNL
thing
refers to it, but like I think it's
But yeah.
better that the movie came out this year, and it's also we're still all really stressed. This year has a weird energy because we are still all high in anxiety with the pandemic and people and everything. But as John Mulaney would say, the horse is out of the hospital. He made a joke that like, yeah, I didn't have to think about politics before because, just like a hospital, now there's a horse in the hospital. I don't know how the horse got in the hospital. The horse doesn't belong in the hospital. And the horse is just in the hospital. Now the horse is out, and now I can focus on the other horrible things. Because now there's actual doctors in the hospital. So I think that's a great way to put it. I'm still stressed and I don't like hospitals, but at least there's actually doctors in there.
A great movie to come out on Black History Month. I was thinking that this movie was kind of like the opposite of Black Klansman, where you have someone infiltrating a black man infiltrating the
Black
KKK.
Panther Party.
Yeah, and then this one, it's not exact opposites, but they
I see the comparison. I see where you're going.
They can be compared. With that being said, let's get to everyone's socials. Where can we find our guest Jazmine at?
I haven't been on social media all year.
That's right.
But I'm on a little detox. I think last time I did plug my socials, yeah, I did, and was like, if y'all want to see where I drag people, which is Insta, and it's only ever bad people. It's not, I don't drag nice people. It's only ever like Donald Trump. So, but I haven't felt the need to as much because he's no longer.
The horse is out of the hospital.
The horse is out of the hospital, so I haven't felt the need to be glued to my phone waiting for like doomsday. But Twitter and Insta, it's Jazmine Shiloh. If you want to follow me, and maybe I'll start getting back on and not having to talk about politics all the time anymore.
I know. I posted something about plants the other day, and I was so happy.
So relieving.
I got to post about plants again.
Well, where can we find those posts about plants, Alex?
Well, on my new Instagram name, Alex and Nobody, because I was bored at work and I changed my name. But I'm mainly on the Instagram, but I also take care of the TikTok account for the First Ones to Die podcast. So you can also look me up there because that's the main one I do. And I play around with it a lot because I just do.
And Jerome, how about you?
You can find me at Not Jerome Red on Instagram. Recently, I've been posting drawings I do at work, so you can see my terrible drawings. They're not actually that bad. But yeah, you can see, I guess, some of my artwork and stuff. And then also going to start putting up some stuff on RoboZoo Media, so you can follow me there. That's where you can find out more about all my other artistic ventures as I go on throughout this year, cooking up some stuff, some music stuff, and trying to get a TV show off the ground. Who knows if that'll happen this year, but it will happen if I have something to say about it.
Manifest.
Gotta keep going. Gotta keep trying. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, so one day we'll have news on this podcast of a TV show that I've made. But until then, keep updated. Keep posted on RoboZoo Media. That's where I'm going to be posting any updates on anything I'm working on. So
nice. You can find me at Jonathan Keys, Insta, Twitter, whatever. You can also follow our podcast at The First Ones to Die anywhere that social media is available. I guess it feels like it pretty much.
And Google and Gmail is what I meant to say.
Oh, and my sister, who I'm giving a shout out to, is starting to help build a website for the First Ones to Die podcast, where we will hopefully eventually start selling merch, collecting all our social media, so it's a one-stop shop. And hopefully also representing all the stuff we are doing outside the podcast too, which would be nice to see all the work we do.
Exactly. I second that, what Alex said. If you enjoyed this podcast, go ahead and give us 5 stars, I guess. You can give us a like, you can give us a subscribe, a follow. There's so many terms for just liking something. So it's really confusing when you're trying to get those things. You don't know what to ask for.
Do
But,
whatever social media platform version of like is that you are
yes.
on at this time and listening to.
Exactly. A
YouTube
comment
has thumbs up too.
a comment always helps. You never know.
Yeah,
And
tell
with
us
that
what
being
you
said,
thought about Judas and the Black Messiah if you have seen
yes.
it. And if you haven't seen
Mhm.
it, well, watch it and then comment and say what you like. Or if you have a movie that is in relation to this or anything we've said here, comment below. Let us know. We'd like to see what you thought.
Yeah, definitely.
And with that being said, we'll see you next week. What's our topic next week? We haven't.
You know, honestly, I don't know.
I don't recall.
Because nothing's on the schedule.
It's to be determined.
So
It will be a
it's
surprise.
TBD.
But we know one thing. We'll be here
I'm
next
gonna make Jerome
Monday.
and Jonathan compete each other for something. I don't know what.
Maybe.
Let's do that.
Okay, we'll be here next week, Monday at 8 a.m. So keep your eyes open for that. With that being said, we'll see you all next week. Bye.
All together.
We were just talking about unity.